What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the BrewLab with me, Lone Fox, your brewmaster in chief. And tonight in the BrewLab, I'm coming at you with another episode of Spoiler Talk. And took a little break over the weekend. Not just because I wanted to take Sunday off and spend some time with my family, but also because Wizards tends to trickle out the spoilers over the weekend, and on Sunday they grind to a complete halt. So a lot less to talk about, and I thought I'd just give it a few days to let things accumulate again. And now we do have quite a bit to get through, and some really exciting, like kind of higher rarity things. I haven't really looked at it too closely, so I'm kind of going in blind, but it was a good long weekend, and I did spend some time on Twitter. So some of these cards I have actually already seen, but that's okay. I think we just need to jump right into it because there's plenty to talk about. So, Galvanic Giant is the first card for tonight. It's a little draft chaffy, in my opinion. For 4 mana, you get a 3/3, and then when you cast a spell 5 or greater, you can put a stun counter on a creature an opponent controls. And then it's got the 7 mana instant that draws you 4 and then discard 2. So again, one of these, with the adventure synergizes with the creature, because, this will be a thing that's 5 or greater, the Storm Reading, but again, probably just absolute pile of trash that may or may not see. I mean, this is even to the point where I don't think this will even see play in draft. Seems pretty trashy to me. I'm surprised it's uncommon. Maybe am I wrong, guys? I don't see like many. Then again, I'm such a draft noob that I could be completely wrong. But because my experience of draft is literally Lord of the Rings, that's it. Like I've never played any draft except for Lord of the Rings, and like getting to 7 mana in Lord of the Rings draft was like very rare situation, very few games. So I just don't see it. But maybe in this limited format, things will be different, and I can't wait to try it. Next up, we've got Grand Ball Guest. 2 mana, you get a 2/2 with Celebration. So for those of you who have missed, the rest of spoilers so far, there's a little mechanic called Celebration. It triggers whenever 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn. And then cool stuff happens. In the case of Grand Ball Guest, he gets +1/+1 and Trample. I think we've just, I don't know, maybe for draft. A lot of these are like draft archetypes, and then the points that I'm going to be trying to make during these episodes of Spoiler Talk is like, are they good enough to make a splash in constructed formats? And I do not think, out of all of these draft archetypes from the set, like that the Celebration deck is going to be like a thing that we can, let's just throw all the cards that say Celebration with them into a deck, and then put some counter spell, some removal spells and whatnot, and suddenly you just got a fantastic deck that like is top tier on day one. Maybe there'll be like 1 or 2 cards with Celebration out of the whole set that are like good enough that you can put them in a pre-existing deck and they'll be good. But it's probably the least exciting mechanic from the new set as far as I'm concerned. I just don't see how we're going to be triggering it consistently every single turn. Having 2 or more non-land permanents entering the battlefield every single turn to consistently trigger your Celebration thingy. And anyway, we've already seen better ones in this one, but whatever, maybe in draft. Next up, I think like this August 19th was mostly draft chaff, except for, again, I'm going to reiterate this point in a second. So Charmed Clothier is a 5 mana 3/3 flyer that makes a roll token when it enters the battlefield. Utter trash. The next one is a part of a little rat tribal series here, these next 3 cards. So again, going back to my point about like draft archetypes that, will they be good enough to become standard, constructed playable? And I think if there's one deck so far from what I've seen reading these cards that is going to actually end up being pretty damn good, it's rats. And Twisted Sewer Witch in particular, which we're about to get to, I think is going to be an important piece of that puzzle. Because Standard right now is a format where, Sunfall, Depopulate, Path of Peril. Yeah, there's like a bajillion amazing sweepers, but mostly Sunfall. That really kind of gets me annoyed. So you need to be the only decks that beat Sunfall deck are mono red aggro and mono white with some taxes in there. Be it whether you prefer to still play the Talia thing or more the Gobakan into Anointed Peacekeeper thing like I prefer. But, you know, mono white has some ways to stall the opponent from casting the sweeper. Mono red kills you before the opponent even gets to cast the sweeper. Those are the only two decks that can do it right now against control, in my opinion. So anything else that's like trying to go a bit aggro, but that isn't as fast as those two I just mentioned, just dies to control decks every single time. And I put Selesnya Enchantments right in there. I completely destroy Selesnya Enchantments with my Esper control deck, with my Azorius Mill deck, which I've been playing a lot on the ladder this season. I just destroy them, completely walk over them. The only deck that I lose, when I'm playing against Selesnya Enchantments, I lose if I'm playing mono white, if I'm playing mono red. So it's this weird position where like the other creature-based one kind of like aggressively slanted, like Selesnya Enchantments is. They don't do so well against sweepers. Will rats be able to go wide enough, fast enough, and do enough damage that it'll add another deck to that list of the decks that can beat Sunfall.x deck? I think so. Bear with me. First off, we got here this Harried Spear Guard. It's a 1/1 with haste. When it dies, you make a rat. That's pretty nice, right? Then we've got the Voracious Vermin over here. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you make a rat. This whenever another creature you control dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. We've got, I'm not going to go back and look at all of the rat stuff, but like specifically talking about that 3-drop we were just looking at, I think Lord Skitter's Butcher here is probably still the better option. But still, just another one of these things that makes another little rat when it enters the battlefield. And then, finally, on turn 5, especially if you're on the play, it's the turn where, like, the next turn, the opponent's going to play a land and slam you with the Sunfall. So you go, turn 5, play a land, play Twisted Sewer Witch. Listen to this, guys. When it enters the battlefield, you not only make a 1/1 black rat creature token, but then for each rat you control, you create a Wicked Roll token and attach it to that rat. So now all of your rats get a little Anthem effect, because the Wicked Roll gives +1/+1, but also when this aura is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So you've been going wide with your rats, attacking with your rats, getting in there for damage with your rats, and then the opponent's just about to hit you with the sweeper, and the turn before they can, you put these little Wicked Roll tokens on each of your rats, and when they do hit you with the sweeper, even if it's an exile sweeper like Sunfall, those little roll tokens are going to be going into the graveyard, and the opponent will get 1 damage for each of the rats that you had on the battlefield. It's kind of sweeper protection, right? That is so good, man. I think that is so damn good. Twisted Sewer Witch is like a little Anthem effect for your rats that then when you get hit by the sweeper continues to put out the damage. I think that is so freaking nice. I cannot wait to try this. Yeah, and let us not forget that we have a rat right now in standard from Phyrexia, all will be one. This, I think his name is like Kuromonix or something, the Rat King. And he can make all of your rats have toxic. So there's also potentially a deck where like you win with poison counters and your rats. Every rat gets toxic 1 if you have that guy in play. Like, I honestly think out of all of these so far, like I just said, the rat tribal thingy might actually be able to make the jump from draft to constructed. Fingers crossed. Stay tuned for day 1. Also, my invites for early access just came through. Yeah, I'm gonna be theory crafting. I need you guys to help me out with that. I really want to make a good showing on day 1 of early access against my fellow content creators and whoop some ass. So yeah, I'm just waiting for one of these websites like Scryfall, or I use many of them, but mostly Moxfield, this type of stuff where you can build decks with sets that aren't available yet, to have the whole set there so that I can start theory crafting. We're only at a short time away. But yeah, early access invites came in the mail today, guys. I'm going to be, of course, as always, streaming over on my Discord, and then I'm going to be recording content all day to put up early access brews on the channel before the set actually releases. So thanks again to Wizards of the Coast for the invite. As always, much appreciated. It's one of my favorite days of the year. Or whenever there's a new set coming out, like I spend. I've already told my wife. I've told everybody at work. Sorry, those 24 hours, just pretend I'm not here, because I'm going to be playing Magic pretty much non-stop with like a caffeine drip intravenous. But anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get on to some more spoilers. We've got the Belligerent of the Ball. Another one of these cards with Celebration, which will not make the jump to standard. Belligerent of the Ball is a 3-mana 3/3, and then if the Celebration thing happens, you get +1/+0 and Menace until end of turn. I think definitely in draft. Great little card for draft. Won't make the cut. This next card, however, as if... Okay, so the Selesnya Enchantments deck from Kamigawa with, the most recent iteration with Calyx, has been an undecided brew. It's not set in stone. There's still, if you go on Untap right now, sort of 2 or 3 different versions. There's one version that still continues to play the 4 times Hallowed Haunting and Catilda, and it's going just for the more like Kamigawa style of just play enchantments and, trigger your Hallowed Haunting. Then Calyx was printed, and then we've also got the Invasion of Theros and Heliod from Aftermath. Now, those are 3 very important pieces that are like leaning the deck more towards an auras deck, and not so much this like mid-rangey Hallowed Haunting situation. Now we add a Tale for the Ages to that. Suddenly, you can see how, I think, at least going forward, the auras one is going to take over as the de facto best, highest win rates, yada yada, Selesnya Enchantments deck in the format. A 2-mana Anthem effect for all of your creatures with auras on them, especially now that we have all of these roll tokens that are auras that are going to be going on all of your stuff. Plus, we've already got really good ones, Audacity and whatnot. Now they're going to get +2/+2. And most of those roll auras already give +1/+1. So this is like +3/+3 for all of your things with a roll token on it. This is a busted card. Busted card alert. Like, if you're into Selesnya Enchantments, I can safely say that on day 1, you can go ahead and just craft yourself 4 of these. It'll be a safe craft and will definitely be a 3 or a 4 of in those decks going forward. Like, freaking guaranteed. So yeah, more Selesnya Enchantments. And there's another card up here, which we'll get to in a second, Yenna, which just adds another whole... Oh my goodness. Anyway, we'll get to that. Next up, we've got Solitary Sanctuary, a 3-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. So this is going to be going in this like blue-white, tap your opponent's stuff with Hilda, the Ice Crown lady from day 1 of spoilers. I can't wait for that one as well. I've mentioned this in previous episodes of Spoiler Talk. I'm a huge fan of blue-white as like a tempo, or like, just creature-based tempo style. Something like Illuminator Virtuoso, or your, Azorius Soldiers most recently, where it's not Azorius. When I think of Azorius, I think of, Wandering Emperor, Farewell, Sweepers, Counterspells, a CGB deck. But there's another side to Azorius, which is usually sort of tempo-based creature things. And this draft archetype with the stun counters and tapping things down with the Icy Queen lady, I think is another one that stands a chance of making the leap into Constructed. And I think Solitary Sanctuary here might be a piece of that puzzle, because not only will you get to stun something the turn it enters the battlefield, so it's not just an enchantment that does nothing the turn it enters the battlefield, which is usually the problem with enchantments like I'm thinking Tribute to the World Tree in green most recently. Just first you got to play it, then the next turn it starts to do stuff for you. But this does something. The turn it enters the battlefield and then has a nice little bit of static text that will continue to help you out with your tapping your opponent's creatures deck going forward, which is whenever you do that, you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. So just quick little scroll down, just to remind you guys, if you don't remember exactly what this lady does, Miss Hilda over here, the Ice of the Icy Crown. Whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, you may pay 1. When you do, choose 1. Create a 4/4 white and blue elemental. Put a +1/+1 counter, scry 2, draw a card. So can you imagine with the Sanctuary that we were just looking at, adding additional +1/+1 counters to your little 4/4 elemental, or whatever else you got going on. Like I think it's going to be a fairly decent deck. I can't wait to try it. You know, Bitter Chill over here, which we saw a few days back. Also Ice Wrought Sentry. There's been, you know, bits and bobs that make me think that it could actually be a deck. So stay tuned. Early access coming soon. Next up, scroll past this Enchanted Tale stuff, and I need to just be careful to move my face here. Let me just pull myself up here. I don't block any of the text going forwards. But we were just talking about Selesnya enchantments. Here we go. Another freaking bursted card. And I think this is the one from Marrow's teaser. He was mentioning a card that can activate to copy enchantments. It's obviously Yenna over here. The only thing I can say is thank goodness it's not an enchantment creature herself, like Calyx. Imagine just playing Calyx into this. At least they were smart enough to not make her an enchantment creature, but still freaking gorgeous artwork. Beautiful elf lady. And yeah, you can pay 2. Choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. So you can copy your Calyx, right? You can copy your freaking Calyx, people. And it can that means you can have 2 Calyxes on the battlefield. People. But, I mean, that's just the most obvious thing. Oh, just copy your Calyx. But the rest of the text box here makes me think that, like, because of these role tokens or any other kind of aura, you know, that you've got already in standard right now, and plus the ones we've already received in this set, like, you know, you can, if the token is an aura, untap Yenna, then scry 2, activate only as a sorcery, which means you can then pay 2, tap it, do it again to something else. You know, you can imagine a turn where, like, before you go to combat, you copy like a bunch of different things, and then you still get to untap her and swing with her. What? What a card. 4 mana 4/4. It's probably not, you know, you're probably going to be putting one of these auras onto her and then untapping, scry 2. Copy another one, put it onto her, untap her. So now, like, you know, the turn that she gets to attack, she's now going to be like a 6/6 or whatever aura you put on there. Like, it's not just going to stick around as a 4/4, but just on face value, like when you play it on turn 4, also not terrible, you know, against mono red and whatnot. Like 4 toughness is good. And then all of this extra spice. I think this card is broken and it will see a lot of play. I don't think it'll be a 4 of. I think it might be like a 2 of. Maybe alongside the Heliod guy. Maybe 2 of this, 2 of the Heliod, or 1 Heliod, 3 of this. I don't know. But I cannot wait to try it, and I'm also a little bit scared about how busted Selesnya Enchantments already is busted. Now it's just going to get even more busted. Next, we got a couple of cards in Asian languages, so I'm just going to create some new tabs over here. We got Kellen's Blade. 1 mana, 1 and a white. With Bargain. Deals 3 damage to target attacking and blocking creature. Okay. If his spell was Bargain, destroy that creature instead. No, I still think Elspeth's Smite that we have right now for 1 mana does 3 damage and exiles. So it's cheaper, but exiles, but only does 3 damage. This is a little bit more expensive, but you need to have a you know, something to pay the bargain. But then you get to destroy. We've got quite a few of these types of effects in standard right now with, you know, destroy target attacking or blocking creature. I don't know if this is better or worse. It's just another one with slightly different play patterns because of the bargain. But I don't think this will see like huge amount of play outside of draft. Next up, we've got Raging Firebolt. A 3-mana red instant that says Firebolt. I'm interested. Deals X damage to target creature. 2 thumbs down. Target creature only. Can't even target planeswalkers. So wait, X damage target creature where X is 2 plus the number of instant or sorceries and cards with adventure in your graveyard. You know, I think the only reason why you'd want to have something like this in your deck, honestly, right now in Standard, is to deal with something like Shieldred with 5 toughness on turn 3, boom, instant speed. Or, we've already got Rebel Salvo and we've already got Nahiri's Warcrafting. Is Raging Firebolt like now suddenly what we're gonna need instead? Where we need to have all of these extra caveats, like what if I don't have things with adventures or instant and sorceries in my graveyard? Then it's just gonna be 2 damage for 3 mana. Like, meh. Good, probably very good removal spell for draft, but won't see any play in Standard. Can pretty much guarantee that. Next up, ooh, I like Selesnya stuff. The Pollen Shield Hair. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. What was the name of that King something the 4th or something like that from King Selesnya card counter tokens. Yes, there we go. This guy, King Darian. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible. Is my face blocking it? No. Still up here. Ooh, I am King Darian. This deck with King Darian, there was a point there at which I was like very hyped and it got so close to being really good. Wedding Announcement, Rabble Rousing. We've got all these, there's the Flash Soldier guy that makes it a 1/1 and another 1/1. Like, we can go really wide, really quick, with lots of tokens. And then, let's throw Pollen Shield Hair into the mix there. Gives all of your tokens +1/+1. And we got King Darian to give all of our tokens indestructible. Yes, this is still a Sunfall meta. I don't know if it's going to be fast enough to get underneath the Sunfall players, but target creature you control gains vigilance and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So, rewarding you for this go wide strategy, and again, putting you into this conundrum. I like this design philosophy so far with the adventure creatures in the set, where like, do I want to play the Shield Hair on 2? But then I can't cast my my sorcery because I've played the creature. You know what I'm saying? Because it's cost 1 and then the creature costs 2, but you can't do it on 1 because you've got no creatures on the battlefield, so it's useless. So you got to make this decision of, should I hold up Hair Rising or should I play the Pollen Shield Hair on 2? Still nicely designed. Love the artwork. I like that the name of the sorcery here, Hair Raising. I like it. Little play on words there. Next up the Beanstalk. 2-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Or whenever you play a spell with mana value 5 or greater. Hey, that's not bad. Reminding me of like, what was it called? Like Garruk's Uprising or something like that. And then that one was like, if you play a creature with power or toughness 4 or greater, draw a card. Or like, even I just mentioned the Tribute of the World Tree. These like green enchantments that draw you cards if something happens. I like that this one cantrips like on the turn it enters the battlefield. It just doesn't just do nothing. Again, play it, you draw a card on 2. And then later in the game, where you probably in mono green Stompy, you're going to be dropping your bombs, big old, things that cost 5 or more. and then it'll keep drawing you cards throughout the game. That's not terrible. That's really not a terrible little card. I don't know if it's what mono green needs to be playable. And I honestly, if there's one thing that I hope more than anything for this set is that mono green becomes a deck. It is, I think, important for a healthy meta. And mono green has just been for like 3 sets in a row now, just like good cards that just don't quite synergize well enough to make a nice deck. I have high hopes though. There's already been a few things that have made me think, maybe the raccoon guy with adventure, maybe. Let's see. Maybe Up the Beanstalk is another piece of that puzzle. Next up, we've got the Mocking Sprite. Oh, Dimir Fairies, guys, has me scared. I got like some post-traumatic stress from freaking Dimir Rogues. So this is another one of these, where it reduces the casting cost of instant and sorceries by 1 colorless. But it's a 3-mana 2/1. We actually had, didn't we have, was it like an Izzet Goblin in the last Thrones of Eldraine that did the same thing, but it was Izzet colors and it was in the Goblin tribe? Same thing, reducing the cost. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember it being from, I mean, I know there was a Goblin that did that in Izzet, but I can't remember if it was from Eldraine. Anyway, these type of effects probably more better in like 100 card formats and whatnot. Even though I'm no expert, I just don't think this will really make the cut for standard. Next up, we got Graceful Takedown. Oop. Interesting. Let me just move myself a bit further down so we can see that properly. Graceful Takedown. Any number of target enchanted creatures you control and up to 1 other target creature you control each deal damage equal to their power to a target creature you don't control. Okay, so it's like a team-up thing. You got a bunch of little tiny creatures and 1 big one, and you're going to try and take down like a titan of industry. So with all of these things having rolls on them, I can imagine you potentially having quite a few of these enchanted creatures. And then, 1 other creature that... I like that fail-safe. Like, oh, look, I don't have any enchantment creatures, but I do have a freaking big ass just normal creature. I can still just pick that one. I like it. I just wish it said creature or planeswalker, like your Master's Rebuke, and there's the new one from Aftermath. No, it was from March of the Machine. Something Hunger maybe. Where, again, it was like instant speed, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker or battle. And I think that's still where you want to be going in mono green if you want to fight spell like that, because it's not only instant speed, but it can target more than 1 thing. Probably in limited, in draft, this will be good. Its ability to team up with a bunch of smaller things to take out a bigger thing is great, but I don't think it's better than existing green fight spells in standard right now. Next up, we got Prophetic Prism. 2 mana for an artifact. When it ETBs, draw a card. Nice. But then, you got to pay 1 colorless tap to add a mana of any color. Imagine if that 1 wasn't there and it just said tap, add a mana of any color, and it drew you a card when it enters the battlefield. This thing would be mythic. As it stands, I can see why it's common. Probably, maybe you pick one up when you don't know what else to pick out of a pack in draft, but otherwise I don't think this will see any play in standard whatsoever. Next up, we got Water Wings. 2 mana instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains flying and hexproof. Woo! Hello, Illuminator Virtuoso. Hello, Illuminator Virtuoso decks. This'll fit right in there. Hexproof. Flying 4/4. There's a card right now, I think it's called like Revelation of Power or something like that. Where it's like if a creature has a +1/+1 counter, then it gains flying, lifelink, and something +1/+1, I believe. And I currently play it in my Illuminator Virtuoso decks, which is really nice. But it was only nice because of the lifelink, and I would say probably still run some of those. But you could also throw some of these in because it's also giving the hexproof, and you want as many ways as you can in the deck to protect the Virtuoso and your other, your Storm Chaser Drake and your whatever else is going in that deck. I think Water Wings here is an immediate include. Even those of you who like playing Simic Rot Priest decks, Water Wings. I think that's pretty decent. Nice little common. Next up, we got Freeze in Place. Tap target creature an opponent controls and put 3 stun counters on it. Scry 2. How's this thing coming? Oh, okay, this is going right into the Solitary Sanctuary Hilda Icy Queen deck straight away. 3 stun counters on it. Imagine not like you're on the draw, the opponent plays like a 3-drop that's busted, like I don't know, a freaking Adeline or you name it. Any of these 3-drops that are just ridiculous. Bloated Contaminator comes to mind. Whatever. 2 mana. You make that thing unable to block or attack for the next 3 turns, and you get to scry 2. Chef's kiss. What a freaking card. I think this deserved an uncommon. Am I wrong? I think this should have been uncommon. If it was like 1 stun counter, then common. 3 stun counters and the scry, this should have been uncommon. Maybe the only reason why it's common is because it's a sorcery and not instant speed. Bastard little card for that deck. That's probably so far my favorite common of the day. Yeah. All right. Onwards and... Oh, we're arriving at the end and I see some rares over here. Next up, we got the Boundary Lands Ranger. 2 mana, 2/2 at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So we've seen a few of these. There's actually like... wasn't it... Yeah, here, the Picnic Ruiner. The same line of text where like, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, yada, yada, yada. So it seems that seems to be like a little bit of a little sub-theme in the set. Is this a particularly good card? I don't know. I mean, whenever I see something that allows you to discard and draw, I need to think about it a little further. Because, reanimation decks, yada yada. But then, like, there's probably just better options right now. Cathartic Pyre or something. That's also a removal spell or one of these filter effects. Or even the 2 mana enchantment that gives things haste that, discard 1, draw 2. And this just seems harder to trigger because you need to have a creature with power 4 greater. So then, okay, so you're playing it in your like aggressively slanted sort of maybe Gruul creature deck. Why would you want to discard really unless it's just to get rid of crap from your hand and hopefully draw something better? But I don't know. I don't see this one being anywhere in standard, but maybe in draft. Who knows? Ooh, Next up, we've got the Lebkuchenjäger. German friends, I'm sorry for butchering your language. Lebkuchenjäger. Lebkuchenjäger? The Gingerbread Hunter. So it's a 5 mana giant. When it enters the battlefield, make a food. And then it's one of these, so it's a Golgari adventure creature combo. 2 and a black, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Let's see what people are saying about this. Yeah, exactly. Pretty good for limited, maybe. Give me a comment. Yeah, no, I think uncommon's okay, but still. I prefer the German name. Sasha Martinez, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's about that's my take on this card as well. I preferred the German name. Might see some play in draft. All right, next up we got the Picklock Prankster. Guys, this fairy deck. It's looking like because we got that Halo Forger in was it All Will Be One or Aftermath? Also Dimir, also Fairy Rogue. It cares about like, I can bring it up on the screen here in a second if you want, but if I remember it. It's you pay X, and then you can cast a spell from your graveyard that's mana value X or less and copy it again or something like that. So from what I've noticed, just quickly scrolling back down, like a lot of these fairies, like here, the Likeness Looter, Talion's Messenger, it's all about draw, discard, draw, discards. You're loading up the graveyard with, you know, I guess instants and sorceries or whatever. And then even way back here, we got the mythic one, didn't we? Yeah, Obira, the Dreaming Duelist. Fairy enters when each opponent loses one. Okay, now that's not really draw, discard, but a lot of these fairies that I've been seeing like throughout, the lower rarity ones. Okay, and then like Thoughtseize at home here. Fantastic in a fairy deck. We saw a draw spell that was like specifically tailoring towards fairies. We've got these two rares here looking phenomenal. I think, like, honestly, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about Dimir Fairies. I think it's going to be really freaking gnarly and annoying to play against. I'm definitely going to try it out on day one and during early access, but I'm worried that it's going to be like an oppressive, really annoying, like Dimir tempo deck with some graveyard shenanigans. And the Picklock Prankster here might be an important piece of that puzzle, because it's got a 2-mana instant adventure that mills 4 and then puts an instant sorcery or fairy from amongst the mill card into your hand. And then you get a 1/3 with vigilance and flying, which honestly isn't terrible, like little chump blocker action. Picklock Prankster. Nice artwork as well. Getting worried about Dimir Fairies, guys. Oh, here's another one. All right, okay, well, let's get to that in a second. First up, next up, we've got this cheeky mouse here, the cheeky house mouse. Anytime I see a 2/1 for 1 in white, you know, it's immediately makes the cut. Like, that's exactly what mono white aggro wants, is a 1-mana 2/1. The fact that it's got a little adventure stapled onto it that gives target creature you control +1/+1 until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. Now I can see why it's uncommon. Nice little card. I don't think it's going to replace the current 2/1 that we're playing. The Soldier Recruitment Officer, is it? I want to say, you know, that then you can pay 4 and draw a card. I think that is still better, but like rotation next year, whatever. This, or, you know, maybe. I think once rotation hits, we'll still have the Recruitment Officer, but we're going to lose the Hopeful Initiate. Maybe we're putting this in instead of the Hopeful Initiate. Regardless, I'm definitely going to try it in mono white aggro. It's a sweet little card. I like this effect, you know, because the situation where you suddenly get into a, you know, mono white aggro can't attack through anymore because the opponent's finally been able to deploy enough blockers. You need some sort of evasion, and this not only buffs your creature but also gives it a form of evasion. So nice little cheeky house mouse there. And we've arrived at the final 4 for the day. Let me just refresh the page once more, just in case I haven't. Okay, that's it for today. So final 4. What do we got here? Spell Stutter. Spell Stutter, yes, 2 mana. Okay, whew. It's one of these. This is reminding me of the Corrupted one that we just got in the Phyrexia All-V1. Where, you know, if the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, 2 mana counter anything. Similar type of thing, right? Or, you know, your make disappears. So it's a 2 mana counter spell. Opponent pays 2. But then there's an upside. They pay an additional 1 for each fairy you control. So, again, this is going to be a 4 of in this Dimir Fairies deck, which I'm going to hate to play against in a few short weeks, I'm sure. A typal counterspell for fairies. Holy cannoli. You know, turn 2, counter anything, and then later on in the game, when you've got a bunch of fairies on the battlefield, it just gets better and better. Amazing. Oh well. I'm definitely going to play the deck. I just hope it's not so oppressive and everywhere that I'm going to hate it by, like, the first week of the new format. And here's another piece of that puzzle, probably in the Spellscorn Coven. It's one of these cross-color adventure creature combos. 4 mana, you get a 2/3 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Nice. And then it's got, ooh, Ooh, instant speed, take it back. Return target spell to its owner's hand. Oh, what was the one it got banned? Divide by 0 from Strixhaven. Had the learn lesson mechanic thing. This is basically just like a fixed... oh my goodness, what was the name of the old one from Eldraine, Fairy... Fiery, whatever, fair, I'll just spell it like this. Adventure card. No. What? Here, Brazen Borrower. This is just basically a fixed Brazen Borrower. Why can't I get just an English one? Okay, well, anyway, it was return target non-land permanent. Is my face covering it? No. We got return target non-land permanent an opponent controls its owner's hand. And then the other side had flash. Okay, I mean, this is mythic. It costs 1 mana less. It's got flash. The petty theft is only 2 mana. Obviously the better card than Spellscorn Coven over here. So, but I've noticed this as a bit of a trend in the set. Like, they're trying to like fix things that they maybe made a little bit too overpowered in the last Thrones of Eldraine. And this just seems like a fixed oh my god, the card we just saw. You know, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's nice. Like, and this is slightly different. It's not any non-land permanent. It's just so you know you can interact with things on the stack. The opponent casts their sweeper or whatever, you can bounce it back to their hand. And then the next turn you play and this one curves nicely into each other where you go 3 mana, do the thing, and then on 4 you play the creature side, and then when it enters the battlefield, forces the opponent to discard a card. I think this is a really nice card. And if fairies is a thing, it's going to definitely be at least a 3 of in there. Maybe the 4 mana just makes it unplayable, but I think this is a sweet-ass little card. Talking about fairies, next up we got the Fairy Slumber Party. At 6 mana, though, it's a sorcery. Return all creatures to their owner's hands. For each opponent to control the creature returned this way, you create 2 blue fairies with flying that can only block other creatures with flying. Holy crap. Actually, that's not too bad. Maybe just a 2 of in constructed as like a kind of finisher. Maybe sideboard action in best of 3 against like creature decks or whatever. I mean, you can imagine if the opponent's gone super wide and then you just bounce everything and make 2 1/1s for everything you bounced. The opponent better have the sweeper on the crackback, or you're just going to hit them in the air with like, you know, bajillion the following turn. Like, that is a sick little card. And in like 100 card formats, you know, you commander players, your EDH players or whatever, because it says for each opponent. You can imagine like on a big table where you're playing against a bunch of people and then you just hit them with this thing. Every creature on the table gets bounced and you get a 2 1/1s for each of those. I can see why it's rare. This is a pretty sweet card. I don't know if, like, again, I'm going to have to see more pieces of the puzzle for the fairy deck to see whether this ends up being like just a 1 of or a 2 of as a sort of finisher top end for that deck, if it even makes the cut or not. But cool effect. Nice. Nice. And we've arrived at the final card of the day in Welcome to Sweet Tooth. It's a 2 mana green saga. Didn't we already have one? Sorry, guys, before I read that card, didn't we already get a 2 mana green saga? That I was pretty high on. Made like a 3/3 beast. Oh, Huntsman Redemption. It's a 3 mana saga. So you could go that one into this one. So this one makes a beast, sacrifice, search for a creature, then gives +2/+2 and trample. And then this one you play out on 2, it makes a 1/1 white human. Second chapter makes you a food, so that's like already just 2 things that you can sack to your bargain mechanic. On top of it, it's, oh, by the way, guys, like, I didn't mention this previously there's a lot of these sagas that you may not always want one of the triggers to happen. So you can sacrifice it to the bargain mechanic before it happens. So your sagas are becoming sack fodder for the bargain mechanic so that you can interrupt the saga where you want it to be interrupted, if you want it to be interrupted. I think that's another thing that people really need to be paying attention to. I hope to have more examples of why I think that's the case as we go on through spoiler season. But okay, so first we get a 1/1, then we get us a food, and then you put X +1/+1 counters. So it's not until end of turn. On target creature you control where X is 1 plus the number of foods you control. Alrighty. I like it. So if you play this on 2 and then the Huntsman's thing on 3, you get, by the time... I can't wait to see how, how the play pattern works out. With this guy, I can imagine, like, okay, you play this on 2, on 3 you play your, like, bloated Contaminator. The 3-mana 4/4 trample. So if you were able to maybe on turn 1 play something that makes a food, I don't know if there is anything, I can't remember. Then on the second chapter of this, which will be the turn that you've played your bloated Contaminator, you make a food. And then on turn 4, when your bloated Contaminator can attack, you now put, at the bare minimum, if all you got was the 1 food from this saga, you're going to put 2, because it's X plus 1. X is 1 plus the number of foods. So you'll put 2 +1/+1 counters on your bloated Contaminator, the same turn that it can attack. And don't forget, it has Proliferate, and it has Trample. So on turn 4, you'll have a 6/6 bloated Contaminator that can trample through and grow again. That seems like a pretty aggressive line for mono green aggro. Please be good. I cannot wait to see if mono green can finally rise again. But that is it, guys, for today's spoilers. Before we end things off, I just want to do the usual and just go through what we've seen and name my favorite common, uncommon, and rare of the day. So I think, we didn't get any mythics, so yeah, that's why I didn't mention that. So as far as commons, Freeze in Place is going to take the cake for me today. I think it's because I really want that blue-white tempo deck to be playable with Hilda. And if it is going to be playable, then Freeze in Place is going to be, I think, an important piece of that puzzle. And I think for a common, like 3 stun counters and Scry 2 is just freaking amazing. So this has to be my common of the day. Uncommon, it's probably going to go to the Twisted Sewer Witch here. Probably. I think it's going to go to the Twisted Sewer Witch. Yeah. No, definitely. It's either that or the Spellscorn Coven. Oh, but also welcome to Sweet Tooth. Oh, a lot of good uncommons today. I just really want Rat Tribal to be good, so it's going to have to go to the Sewer Witch, but there's some... The Sweet Tooth thing is also looking really nice, as well as this guy. So let's see. Also the Cheeky Mouse. Oh my goodness, a lot of good uncommons today. I don't know. But as far as rare, I'm afraid it's going to have to go to A Tale for the Ages. It's just by far like the most powerful card today. I think it's even better because Yana here, like, dies to removal, has to sit there for a turn, yada yada. This, you just like can imagine when you play it, it's just going to impact the board so much. You just hold it back until you have a nice big board covered with these roll tokens and whatnot, and then you just poof, everything's going to get this huge buff. It's an enchantment itself. It's going to trigger your cameos of transiences and whatnot. You'll be able to cast this for 1 mana on turn 3 when you have already played your the Selesnya enchantment creature that reduces the casting cost. I can never remember the name of. So yeah, this is going to be my rare of the day for sure. But that's it, guys, for today. Thank you all so much for watching.
I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, kindly consider leaving a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment down below, which was your favorite cards of the day and all the various rarities. But I will be seeing you all in the next episode of Spoiler Talk. And until then, this is Lone Fox from the BrewLab signing out. Peace, y'all.